Substantiate, to establish by proof or competent evidence. Welcome back to Substantiate. I'm the host, William Glasser, bringing you hypothetical sports matchups every single week. Welcome to Substantiate. Again, I'm the host, William Glasser, bringing you hypothetical sports matchups and sports previews every week. And today I was joined with Joe Daley from the Airing It Out with Joe Daley Fantasy Football podcast. And we drafted two teams of NBA players playing fantasy football. So that was a great recording we had, which we'll get to in just a little while. And it's funny because not that long after we recorded this, LeBron James went out and started talking about how football was his first love and how he easily could have been a wide receiver for the Cowboys or the Seahawks. I think those were the two teams he mentioned, but that came out after we recorded this, so we don't mention it. But maybe one of us drafts LeBron, maybe no one does, maybe we do, and I guess you'll just have to see if yes, then who drafts him in a little bit later on in this episode. But first, if this is your first time listening to Substantiate, thanks for coming along and joining us today and giving me some of your time. And go check out our Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at substantiatepod. And last quick thing before we throw it to my talk with Joe is the last month or so I was running a giveaway for 2 invitations to the app Clubhouse, and that ended a couple nights ago. So if you won, go check your email. You will have received an email to confirm and get some more information from you. So yeah, there is that. There are, as always, some great links in the show notes, different social medias for Joe, who you'll hear from in a minute, and from myself. And yeah, just, if you really enjoy listening, which I hope you do, please take a screenshot, share it on your Instagram story or on your Snapchat story, or just talk about it with a friend or family member. It helps out a lot to grow the show by word of mouth, and thanks for doing that. And if you didn't love the show, then send us an email, let us know why, and we always love to work to improve the podcast. So you can do that at substantiatepod@gmail.com. And now I think I've taken up enough of this time, so let's throw it to my conversation with Joe Daley. Today, I'm joined here with Joe from the Airing It Out podcast. How are you today, Joe?
I'm good. How are you, Will?
Doing well. So before we hop into the main part of this episode, do you want to take a minute or two to talk about yourself and Airing It Out?
Sure. First of all, Will, I want to thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure. Been listening to you since we met. A couple of your most recent episodes. Very interesting stuff. I love what you do here, and I'm excited to be a part of it today. So my name's Joe Daley. I have a fantasy football podcast called Airing It Out with Joe Daley, as Will just mentioned. And really what it's all about is just getting, I'm passionate about fantasy football. It's one of those hobbies that I have that's just always been something that kind of brings joy into my life, especially with how crazy the world is. Fantasy football is a nice little escape, playing with friends and stuff like that. Yeah, so the podcast itself, there's a website with written content, video content as well. That'll be updated, obviously, as we go towards the season here, as one season just ended. But Airing It Out focuses on just getting people ready for the weeks ahead, and certainly the draft before the season starts. making sure that, I can give the best advice I possibly can with regards to, players, how to deal with injuries. One of our recurring segments is kind of like an injury segment where we talk to a physical therapist, every week about the injuries from that past week and what to expect with people coming off injury. So that's been a popular segment. And we just do all sorts of things. We talk about start sits, the things you commonly see with regards to fantasy football. And then, like I said, on the website, airingitout.com, all that is supplemented with other articles from myself and other people that are on our writing team as well. So it's like I said, it's a passion of mine, an outlet for me to do something that I love. And, I've always loved sports. I love football, and I absolutely love fantasy football. So any way I could help people while also giving them some entertainment value to me is a fun thing to do. So again, thank you for having me. This is really cool. Of course.
So if we just open up by talking a little bit about the current state of the NFL, and as of the time we're recording this, the only quarterback movement there has been is Matthew Stafford going to the Rams and Jared Goff going to the Lions. So what are your thoughts about that trade?
Yeah, so a lot of people thought the price was too high, and maybe it was, right? All those first rounders when the Rams haven't had a first round pick in years. But for me, if they truly don't believe in their franchise quarterback Jared Goff at that point, with the amount of money they gave him, they're paying a premium with giving up those first round picks to get that money off their board. They get a guy in Stafford who is an established quarterback in the league. Certainly, I think personally a better thrower of the football than Jared Goff is, and someone they think that can run their offense. They're high paced and airing it out type of offense that they do in LA. I think that yes, it costs them a lot pick wise to get him off the balance sheet essentially, but I think it was a smart move because really they are in a win now scenario. That as far as cap, they don't have a lot of wiggle room. This certainly alleviated some of that. And I think he's going to step in there and they'll definitely be better through the air for sure with who I think is a better quarterback than Goff. I think Stafford's going to have a nice year. Honestly, I think people are going to be a little wary in fantasy anyways, drafting him, early. And I would too, but I think he's going to be a great value late in drafts. I don't know how late he'll last. I think people will see, okay, he's on the Rams. I think that's a good situation. So I think he's going to be one of those mid to late round quarterbacks that you're going to get past all the people you have to pay up for, like Mahomes and, Lamar and all those guys. He'll be a nice discount quarterback. I think he's going to have a huge year. I like it. Goff, and at least in fantasy, I'm staying away from him next year. The Lions are a mess. And they're probably going to lose Galladay, who's a free agent as well. So
it's crazy because sometimes you just think like, they can't get any worse than this, right? And then they managed to prove it.
They'll surprise you. Yep. It's the way that organization is run. Think of all the star athletes, the MVP caliber type players that have retired early. You have Calvin Johnson, who congratulations to him now entering the Hall of Fame. This upcoming offseason here. And then, Barry Sanders, it's just like for so long, you see this talent go to waste. When Stafford came out of the draft, he was a highly touted prospect. And unfortunately, he was doomed to be in the, in Detroit for the vast majority of his career. So hopefully he can have a little, he put up numbers, but not, hasn't gotten to the main goal. So hopefully, this is a chance for him to do that.
And speaking of another team that continually gets worse, the Houston Texans managed to trade away their star receiver, who was a top 3 receiver in the league last year, with arguably the best play of the year last year. Then they managed to lose their star defensive lineman in J.J. Watt. And then now their quarterback situation is in shambles. So what's going on with Deshaun Watson now?
Yeah, so, first of all, I want to touch upon the J.J. Watt thing. I just heard that news maybe 20 minutes before I got on with you, and I'm just like, I saw it coming, but just it's one domino after the other, like you're saying. And again, the management of that team, they make the Lions look like the Patriots. It's just been, at least of recent time, and they've had success, but it's just, the player personnel decisions. They got to clear house there because it is a mess. But, with Watson, they're talking, they're saying they're not going to train. He'll be gone. I can guarantee that. They're playing hardball. He's definitely going to play hardball, and he's young. If he has to sit out a year, I think he's willing to take that route, possibly just to not be there and kind of force their hand. But, it's going to be interesting. This carousel is going to be really interesting. I know he's going on the record by saying, he's interested in the Dolphins and the Jets. I think that for me, I look at the Jets and I say, okay, yeah, they got some draft capital, which they'd probably have to use a bunch of it to get Watson. But if I'm Watson, do I really want to go from the Texans, who are a poorly managed team that can't get over the hump, to the Jets, who are an extremely poor managed team that can't get over any hump, let alone an anthill? So, I know that's been kind of talked about as one of like the leading spots, but I just don't buy it. I think the Dolphins really are kind of where he's going. Their defense is fantastic. They showed that this year. I think he fits in well there. I think he, in that offense, could do some big things. However, Tua, they just spent, the fifth overall pick, I should say, on him. Jury's still out on him. He's a rookie without an offseason last year, a very shortened offseason. So kind of trying to figure out what he is, like, it's a little early. I don't know, and that's a cheap contract. If he ends up panning out, you got him for several years with a good team around him. They fix up a few things. They could do some damage if he ends up panning out to what they think he would be. But it's really, the Watson piece is a huge one. Could he end up with the Niners? I mean, that would be a fantastic spot. Could he end up, with some of these other, I don't think it would be the Colts, but there's just so many possible landing spots for him, people that need quarterbacks. The Bears, I don't love that for him personally, but certainly a great defense there. Some stars. Maybe they get Allen Robinson to stay. I mean, I think there's a ton of potential as to where he could go, but it's just so hard to see. And especially if they're saying, hey, we're not going to trade you. Again, I don't believe that long term, but the Raiders, they said that could be a possible play. Gruden's a court QB guy. He'll make a big splash there. And I like that. I like him with the Raiders. But
there's lots of destinations and a lot of teams in need of a new quarterback. And with the Jets back a little bit, like with Sam Darnold, next year will be his fourth year. And in terms of a rookie contract, so he only has 2 years left on that. And if the Jets draft Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence, whichever one is available at that point in the draft with their second overall pick, then they get a whole reset on those 5 years that come with a first round draft pick.
It's certainly a tempting scenario. It's just, you want the proven guy. You want someone who's going to help you win. I don't think the Jets are, if all things are equal and they get Watson, I don't think they're winning this year. Maybe not next year. Anyways, they have so many holes. The Jets have so many holes on offense, on defense. I mean, They need to fill so many. Because that's the other thing too. Do they want to give up all these picks when they need help everywhere? Yeah, they'll get better at the quarterback, but if you don't have a team around them, the receivers, I mean, those are lacking, as you know.
Yeah, their receivers are terrible. Sam Darnold, poor guy, doesn't have a guy to throw the ball to.
And that becomes a hard thing. How do you judge Sam Darnold truthfully when he's been playing with subpar counterparts? So it's just. That's the scary business of the NFL and free agency and all this QB carousel stuff. It gets tricky. And if they do get Watson, where does Darnold end up? I think Darnold's a nice prospect coming out of college. He was a good looking prospect. A lot of people were high on this guy. They called him like a kind of Romo-esque, or I'm a Cowboys guy. I don't know if I told you, but I'm a Cowboys guy. I'm a big Romo fan.
Oh.
I know. Listen, I feel the same way.
The downloads just sunk like 10%.
I know. It's just it's bad. But they said he had some of those qualities, kind of. But you can't see him with the Jets because he's running for his life. His receivers are not great. It's hard to judge, and they have to. These are big money decisions.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of things changing before the season starts next year. And not even just from a player's perspective, but depending on how the Deshaun Watson situation plays out, the way the league looks, what's the power dynamics? Is it going to fall more like the NBA with a players league where the quarterbacks are going to have the power, where when Aaron Rodgers says, not everyone will be back next year, does that mean that he gets to choose who's back, including himself? Or lots of stuff can change in the coming months.
I don't think it'll ever be as fluid as the NBA is, because they're like their own entities. They're their own brands. They could you saw what James Harden did.
Yeah.
Which was, impressive how quickly he was out of there. I'm sure Houston fans, Houston fans, people in Houston have to be like
Houston as a city. I saw a post on Instagram this morning. They've lost like a lot of their top baseball players, their top basketball players, and their top football players.
It's garbage. I feel bad. Listen, for as long as my Cowboys haven't made it to a Super Bowl or even a conference championship, I can't even imagine what they're going through right now. But It's certainly a scary proposition for the NFL. I mean, it certainly makes it interesting. Here we can talk about this for 2 hours if we wanted to. Who's going to end up where? But it's just a matter of, I don't think the corporation, the entity of the NFL is so much, I wouldn't say more powerful than the NBA, but like the flag, the shield. That rules supreme. So I think it's tough, especially these are much larger teams. There's so many moving parts, both on a standpoint of the players. Now, again, they're their own kind of business as well, just not as big as the NBA when it comes to being able to control things. But, you have so many other moving parts that it's hard to, like, LeBron can go to this team, right? And just, he's going to.
Well, before he signed with the Lakers, I felt like everyone knew he was going to LA for like over a year before.
Right. But that's the thing. And then you have owners who are like, oh, well, we want LeBron. Maybe if we sign one of his buddies, or maybe if we sign this guy that's been on some of those like Heat championship teams or whatever, like Danny Green or something like that. If we get him and then everything starts moving because this one guy or these two guys want to move teams. So I don't think that'll ever be the case in the NFL. There's just too many players, too many moving parts. But it's certainly, I think this year, and certainly Watson is proof of it. I really think we'll see a little bit more of that, where people will say, okay, these contracts are tricky. And you're going to see teams be like, you know what? I think we can still be all right with a rookie quarterback and save a ridiculous amount of money and shore ourselves up elsewhere. Yeah. But we shall see. It's going to be interesting.
Lots of things changing. So that leads to a good segue into today's main topic, which is going to be NBA players playing in fantasy football. So the way this is going to work today, so Joe and I are each going to draft a team of NBA players. There are going to be 6 players on each team, a quarterback, a running back, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, and a flex player. So that can be running back, wide receiver, or tight end. 6 in total, and I got coin here. Let's see. What's the call?
I'm going to go heads. The Super Bowl, that coin toss was a head. So just, everyone says tails never fails.
Uh-oh. Thing rolled away from me.
Little blooper reel. I like that.
It is tails.
Oh, all right. Listen, that's fine. I'll make it up. Now, I got to ask you, I know we didn't talk about this in the prep here. Is this a snake draft? So do you draft, then I draft, and then you draft again?
Yeah.
Or a snake draft where you draft, I draft twice, and then you draft,
Me, you twice, me, you twice,
okay.
You. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Sounds good. I'm in. 6 players. I think I'm ready. I think I know, depending on who you go first, I think I know where I'm going second.
Yeah. So one thing we discussed a little bit before we started recording is that there's a lot of football players that played either college basketball or high school basketball or high school baseball or another sport, and more so than the other way around, which makes it a little bit interesting here, because then the players are really being taken out of their element. So with me, I have, just looking down the list for a wide receiver, looking for someone with good hands, a quarterback, nice touch. And also in fantasy football, you more often than not are drafting a running back in the first round. So True. I think I'm going to stay with that route and gonna think about some faster, some more physical players in the NBA. And when it comes down to it, like just looking at different NBA shooting guards and some of the small forwards, and I look at someone like James Harden, who, like we were talking about a little bit before, managing to get his way out of Houston, and he's a physical guy. He'll go in there. And I think that in this one, I am going to go with James Harden. I think when he wants to, he can be fast. When he wants to, he can be physical. And when he wants to, he can be overweight also. So it's all about what he wants to do. He has a lot of control over his body, over himself, and over the way he plays. And I think if I can build a team around him that can motivate him to win, that he can be the player I'm looking for in a running back.
All right. Okay. Can I give you a little feedback?
Yes, of course.
All right. So, and this is what I do on Airing It Out. We talk about drafts and we talk about, player personnel decision. Listen, I do like the pick. I want to highlight something you said. It's when he wants to. I see it, and I played ball growing up, basketball. It's one of my first loves. I can't stand to watch him play defense. It is difficult for me to watch. And when I say play defense, I mean that very lightly. Now they're saying his post defense has improved and stuff, and whatever. But
the Nets give up record points every night.
Record points. Yeah, it's ridiculous. So, whereas I like the pick, he's a talented player. You're going to be thinking, okay, week 1, week 2 of this season, of this fake fantasy football season, is he going to show up or is he not going to show up? But I like the pick, but you're gonna be worrying. You're gonna be worrying. Or is it my pick? I got my back to back here.
Yeah, and one last thing with James Harden is, like, with him, my whole goal now, it kind of sets it up for the rest of the draft, is to have a team that, I mean, although it's not like they're playing just regular football where they're going to be teammates, but right. To build a team around him that plays to his strengths and weaknesses in different ways that it needs to. So if he is going up against a good defense of some sort, whatever that might be in this hypothetical scenario, but
this is why I love this, man. This is why I love your show. I love this whole concept of just like, let's dive in. Let's have some fun with this.
Yeah. And we don't have a set way of whether it's going to be the NBA teams just as football teams, where on the Nets, James Harden's the running back. Kyrie is, I don't know, what would he be, like a small wide receiver or something?
I'm looking at this as they're playing in the NFL. Like, this is going to be an NFL fantasy football team. So who would hold their own, Yeah. And I think James Harden could, he shows up, in this real fake fantasy football. I think he could definitely pan out. He's not a bad pick. It's just a nerve-wracking pick. You're going to be a little worried week in, week out. Fantasy football, and you'll hear me say this on Airing It all the time, it's all about achieving consistency. Can you get that consistency week in, week out from your players that you're putting out there? That's the biggest thing.
Yep.
All right, is it me?
Yep. Down to you, Joe, with your first pick, second overall.
Listen, this may be the easy route out, but I'm going to take it. In a normal fantasy football league, I would go running back heavy pretty early. That's always been my strategy for years now. I'm going to go quarterback here, and I'm going to go with the top dog, and I'm going to tell you why. LeBron James, welcome to the team. You are the quarterback of my team, and here's why. Very simply, I'm just going to tell you very simply here. LeBron James can do everything on the floor. I honestly think that if he wanted to transition to football at this stage in his career, he might be able to hold his own at like tight end or something. But when we're taking his skill set from the NBA, I mean, literally his skill set is all of the skills you need. He has basically all of them, right? He can distribute the ball like Magic Johnson. He's, for a guy his size, he's one of the best passers in the league right now, which is, and again, this is a guy he's the best in the league right now, but at everything really almost. But he, as far as a distributor, which is what a quarterback needs to do, he can do that. He's fast, he's bulky, so he can, if you put him at quarterback, we can run him a little bit. But again, he's distribute first, he's pass first, but he can also kind of jam it down your throats and certainly score on you at will in the NBA. And I think that would transition here as a quarterback of an NFL fantasy football team.
Yeah, and LeBron James has record amount of assists, which is exactly what you're looking for in a quarterback, someone to distribute the ball, to get it out to a teammate, to a wide receiver or tight end in this situation and score a touchdown.
Oh yeah. Like I said, I really think if he were to transition, I think he played football in high school or what, I think he played when he was younger.
Yeah, it sounds right. And just, you look at his body type, it's perfect for football.
Yeah, he's standing in that pocket. He can take hits. He can avoid hits. That's in the way the NFL is going right now. The more mobile your quarterback, the better. And certainly for fantasy, those are, your floor of what a guy can score week by week is immediately elevated when they can use their legs. So Josh Allen, you look at the year Josh Allen had in real life and in fantasy. Lamar Jackson last year, this year.
He also had COVID this year.
It was a wild one this year, especially trying to figure out who was in, who was out every week. But yeah, I think LeBron James, number 1 pick. Welcome to the team. Snake drafts, I'm going again here.
Yes, you are.
All right. So this, when I was looking at this and when we decided what positions you're going to do, I know we're taking 2 wide receivers, so I wanted to make sure to at least get one at the top. And I had a couple of guys in mind, and I ended up going with the guy that I didn't think I would go with. Because as a player, I like him as a player. I think he's a good player, but something about him that, not a huge fan, but I'm a fan of him and his talent. Westbrook, wide receiver. And it has a lot to do with his speed and his ball skills. His ability to get to the hole and off the dribble. He's super quick. That's something I see him as a little slot wide receiver, a little Cole Beasley type, one of these guys that's going to outrun you. His route running would be pristine, fast, quick movements, and he'll be getting open and he'll be scoring, 75-yard touchdowns right out the gate. So I love Russell Westbrook as a wide receiver here. Again, he's a smaller guy, so not really the prototypical body type, but certainly someone that I think, maybe as a little slot receiver or whatever, but, you start who you have in fantasy. But, yeah, I think Russell Westbrook, his ball skills, his speed, to me, for a wide receiver, those are the sort of things that would translate perfectly.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick, and he's in a new place this year. He hasn't led the team to some crazy season. They had a better season in Houston last year, but he's still a reliable player. He's still the player that gets all those triple doubles. Right, and part of a triple double is scoring those points, and he's proved to do well in that. And
in his mentality, he's got that sort of diva-ness to him, which NFL wide receivers, if they're anything, many of them have that diva quality where they give me the ball, get out of the way, here we go. That's why I think he would slot in perfectly there. But I think it's up on you, man. Let's see. So I got quarterback and one of my wide receivers of the two. Where are you going to go next?
All right. So I'm going with a very unconventional pick here. So in football, the biggest position is, well, you could make an argument for linemen, but that we have is obviously the tight end. And the NBA obviously has plenty of players that are big and physical. And I'm thinking of here, okay, my tight end doesn't need to be the 7'1" guy. He doesn't need to be the Dwight Howard. He can be, a little bit shorter, because if he's still going up against just regular NFL defenses, then just that floor of a 6'6" should be fine. Which is why here I'm going with Zion Williamson as my tight end.
Ooh, I like the pick.
He's 20 years old. He is one of the most physical players that's still in the game, as we're seeing a league that transitions to more and more three-point shooting. He is a bigger player. He is 6'7", and again, despite being on more of the average size for an NBA player, put that in the NFL, and he's already heads and shoulders taller than a lot of defenses. And he's just such a physical guy, and he brings so much power and explosiveness to his gameplay. When he's going in and driving for a dunk, it's almost impossible to stop him. Like, if there was a brick wall there, there's still a good chance he would literally knock over the brick wall and bring that ball down into the net.
Yep.
And I think he can translate that to football. Instead of slamming something down, he's just going to effectively pick it up and just, instead of dumping the ball off, he's picking it up midair. He can definitely jump up high and just a physical force as a tight end.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic pick. Wasn't even on my radar. I wish it was, because that probably would have been my pick if I thought about it a little bit longer. I think I'm going to wait on tight end here a little bit, but yeah, that's a fantastic pick. I like that a lot. Yeah, he's an absolute monster. I mean, he is a beast. He's so hard to defend down low in the NBA. So yeah, and in those kind of 50-50 ball scenarios in the NFL, he's a tough one to defend. Doesn't have the quickness, but certainly you get him into an area where it's him and someone a little smaller than him. Yeah, one of those cornerbacks. No,
just send him a post to the back of the end zone. He's fine.
Easy. Yeah. No, that's a good pick. I love that. I like that a lot.
Yeah. So now left on my team, I just have two wide receivers, a quarterback, and a flex position. So I'm going to break into that wide receiver group now. And again, in a wide receiver, when it comes to basketball qualities, like Zion Williamson, trying to look for someone physical. And I am going to try to keep it on the bigger side for this to kind of leverage one of their strengths as basketball players. So I'm not going for a 6-foot player here. Again, I'm looking for someone that I don't need their 3-point ability. I just need them to be able to, a lot of ball movement on offense. And, I'm debating here between a lot of Chris Paul and bit of that kind of style player, similar to how you have Westbrook. And ultimately, I'm going to go with Chris Paul's teammate, who is a bit younger than he is, and similar to Westbrook in some ways, but I'm going to go with Devin Booker here. He
Wow, nice.
he has a good offense to work with DeAndre Ayton and Chris Paul, and I think the Suns move the ball around pretty well and are able to maximize a lot of their threats on offense.
I like that. And he's wide receiver, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful. Okay. Wow. Interesting. All right. Okay. So this is actually perfect. So I had a feeling you might take my two guys up here coming up, but you didn't. So that makes me very happy. So let's see. So far, I started out with LeBron James and Russel Westbrook. James is my quarterback. Russel Westbrook is my wide receiver. I'm going to go running back here. And I got the back-to-back pick, which is good. So I'm actually going to end up going running back and tight end here. But I'll start with the running back, give him the higher draft capital here. And these two guys are from the same team. And when you hear my running back, you might think, okay, size-wise, I don't know. But I'm going to give you a comp. I think he's a very similar player, or would be a very similar player to an Alvin Kamara on the Saints here. And that's going to be Steph Curry. And I like Steph Curry, obviously, with regards to, running back. His court vision is fantastic. And what skill do you need as a running back is the ability to see the field, see your blocks, where they're coming from, where's the opening, where's the opening going to stay open longer, where's it closing up, and being able to be agile. Now, you have Alvin Kamara, of the Saints. He's someone that, again, he's a smaller statured guy. He's not a big guy. He's a tiny guy compared to some of these other running backs like a Derrick Henry, and some of these other guys. But boy, does he pack a punch, number one. Number two, he is so good in open space. He's so good at being patient through the holes. And that's why he's a perennially a top fantasy draft pick, and we talk about him highly at Airing It Out, is that not only can he, Alvin Kamara, can he running between the tackles because he's got the patience in the field vision. He's catching balls out of the backfield. He's a slippery guy. He's going to get open in open space, and he's going to make guys miss.
Yeah.
I think Steph Curry has those exact same qualities, and I think in a football situation could flourish in those exact same ways. I mean, we'll go watch highlights and everyone's seen of Steph Curry getting to the rack against these guys that are like twice his size.
Yeah, and if you draw an equivalent between ball moves in basketball to different moves in football, if you were to make that comparison, then he would be a perfect running back, dodging tackles left and right, able to manipulate in basketball where the ball is respective to the defender. And in this case, in football, where his body is in respective to the defender. And like you said, he's not as big as Derrick Henry. Is he going to have a stiff arm like Derrick Henry? Probably not. But is he still going to be that quick and nimble guy out there that is in control of where he is, of where the defender is? And I think that's a good pick. And back for the very first episode of this podcast, which was Michael Jordan versus Curry playing golf. And so, in preparation for that episode, I did a fair amount of research about Curry. And there was one thing, I read an article, I forget where it was from, but it was about Curry like having something in it wasn't a disability, but the opposite, but something with his brain where he's able to like predict the way people are moving around better than, I guess, average human or whatever. And that quality would translate just as well to football with finding openings and being able to get, the occasional 20-yard rush, etc.
Sure. Yeah, I love that about him, and I'd love to, I'll try to go find that article, because if that's like a skill that's taught, great, and if you can like kind of look at someone's body and the way it's moving, kind of see where they're going to go. But if that's something that he feels is kind of internal already, no wonder he's such a star in the NBA. His vision for what's going on around him is just, finding the open guy, distributing. He's just fantastic. When you watch him down, this is big guy territory down low, when you see him in the block down there and making his move to the hole, like you said, his body placement is a thing of beauty. It's poetry in a way, it's as a basketball fan my whole life, and someone who used to play, it's beautiful to watch. It's a great thing. So yeah, I think at running back, again, not your typical kind of bulky guy, but he's my Kamara guy. He'll find the holes and he'll hit you for a long touchdown. All right, and then his teammate in the NBA is actually going to be my tight end. And I want someone, listen, I got LeBron James. He's a nice guy. He's going to find but he's also, and I love the way my team's panning out is if it were an actual NFL team, because you got LeBron James, big body, but can move and can distribute. You got Curry's, what we just talked about. Westbrook, he's the speed guy. He's going to run his crisp routes. This guy's going to be my enforcer. Draymond Green, welcome to the team at tight end. He's got the size, doesn't need the 7 foot size that we talked about, but he's got the size, he's got the body type to go out. He's fast, he's gonna body you, and he'll make some moves. I think as a tight end, he's also one, he craves the ball. Give me the ball, I want in, but he's also not afraid to do some of the dirty work, which is tight ends. What do they need to do? They need to be able to block. They got to stay in to block. That they're going to do that. They're moved around the field. If he's going to be lined up at wide receiver, a little further out from the line, great. Look at Draymond Green. He'll hit you a three every once in a while. Like he'll spread the floor a little bit, which is not something you see a lot from. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. We're seeing it a lot more, but certainly back when I was young, it wasn't something you saw quite a bit. But now you got almost 7-footers shooting threes from downtown. But I love give me a little bit of the attitude, give me a little bit of the roughness, give me the skill set. He's got the skill set. I think he could play great at tight end for the team. So I think Draymond, he's starting to round out this team. I'm liking this. I'm interested to see where you're going to go with your next two picks.
Yeah. So I was debating here between going with a player like Luka Doncic or,
nice.
But ultimately I'm deciding not to go with him because the Mavericks have not been that good this season. And not that Luka hasn't been playing well, but there's still an element of, when you're on a bad team in football, if you're not scoring as many points on fantasy, that's the number way to get points, receptions and touchdowns. So Luka gonna have to stay away from him for a little bit right now. But just I'm going with my second wide receiver here. So I'm trying to dip into some of the better teams. You dipped into the Warriors, who despite this year not being that great. And so I'm going to dip into a bit of the leaders in both conferences. So with my second wide receiver on the Bucks, I'm going with a player that is big. He's bigger than Zion Williamson, and very powerful as well, but maybe not as powerful necessarily, and built a little bit more like a wide receiver. And that's going to be Giannis. And him as a wide receiver, will be a little bit weird, but Giannis is another player who's he has good hands. He can work his way. He can jump high to come and get the ball. He can, he's led teams to great regular seasons, which is all you need in fantasy football. You don't need the playoffs in fantasy football. And he just embodies a lot of things that any great athlete has. He has strength, he has size, he has a good mental game. And I think that he'll be able to use a lot of those qualities when it comes back to football.
I like it. All right. So I'm actually glad. Wait, hold on. So who do you have a flex left? All right. So I won't say. You left me someone who I like for a similar reason with the size there too. I think there's some okay. All right, I like the Giannis pick. I think he's in the NBA he's panning out to be what I can see. Certainly when LeBron finally hangs it up, but some of these other guys, I think as long as his skills sets develop, his mid-range jumpers and all that, I think as his jumper and stuff develops, he'll become even more of a force in the league. I mean, his size alone, which again, when we're moving this to fantasy football, that size element certainly in those kind of like I'm looking at the skill sets. What skill sets translate? I think being able to use his body well and that size in space is perfect for a wide receiver. And that's I'll shut up there and I'll wait till it's my turn again. But yeah, great. I like it, man. It seems shaping up here.
Yeah. So now I have it's my pick again, and between James Harden, Zion Williamson, Devin Booker, and Giannis, my main positions are all filled out. So now I just have a quarterback and a flex position left. So I'm going to go with a quarterback here. And like you went with your quarterback, LeBron James, looking for someone with high assists, someone that can dish the ball out. And honestly, I would have gone with Russel Westbrook before had you not picked him because of his also record assists. So I'm looking back at the 2020 assist leaders, and on that list, there is LeBron James is at the top, but you already took him.
I did.
But you come in, he was the only player actually that averaged over 10 assists per game, which is incredible. But
especially for the amount he scores. Like that's the crazy thing too. Yeah. He's so willing to get his teammates involved because it actually makes it easier on him, right? I mean, when they have to address everyone on the floor, that's going to open up opportunities for him too. So I mean, he's brilliant. He's brilliant, and no one has to say that. We all know that. We've been watching for a billion years now, but he's brilliant.
And not just that, but he had 684 total assists in the 2019 to 20 regular season in 67 games. And then number 2 on that list, who I will be selecting here as my quarterback, is Trae Young. And he had only 560 total assists in the season. So this is being ranked by per game, but overall per game, and he played 7 less games than LeBron. But regardless, it was a 124 assist gap between the two, which is insane.
It's crazy. I mean, think about the age. It's just so insane that he's still playing LeBron at a high level. And listen, I love the pick. I love this Trae Young kid. I think he's going to be he already is a star, but I think it's just going to get better and better for this kid. And surround him with some talent, going down the road here. I think he can make some noise in this NBA. He's an impact guy. Can really do some fantastic things. So I love the pick. He's a good ball player.
Yep. So that is my quarterback, and which leaves me with just my flex. And now it is your pick. You have a wide receiver and a flex left. So who is your next pick?
Okay. So I've been debating this a little bit. I'm going to go with my second wide receiver here. So I'll tell you that much. I'm debating this a little bit. I want a guy with size because I don't really have, as far as pass catchers go, Draymond, they're NBA players. They're all pretty big, but I don't have the guy who I think could be a field stretcher, pretty quick, but also has the body to go up and get the ball. Even my running back is relatively short when it comes to the NBA. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a former teammate of my last 2 picks. You probably know who's coming here, and that's Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
Now here's where my apprehension is. Fantasy football is a physical game, and this is why I almost didn't take him. He's an injury risk. He's been injured a ton in his career, especially lately. He missed all of last season. So that's going to be my biggest thing. Now, does that mean that my flex pick is also going to be a wide receiver that can fill in a spot here if need be? Maybe. But but I think Kevin Durant, he's just, again, he's got the similar to Giannis. His body type is obviously similar, but he's a playmaker. He's gonna, he knows where he needs to be. He's gonna get there. The one issue, other than like I said, big guy can go up and get the ball. LeBron's gonna throw it up to him. He'll come down swinging or whatever. But well, actually, again, this is fantasy, so it doesn't mean they'd be throwing him to him. But regardless, I just think that he has the body to go and get those jump balls, and
yes,
certainly he's a fantastic athlete. He's top of the game. When he's not hurt, he's scoring from anywhere. He's a natural born athlete. He's a natural born scorer, and I want that in my wide receivers as well. So just mentality wise, but like I said, the injury risk, that's a little scary for me. But we'll see what we can do. Hopefully he stays healthy. But that is Kevin Durant at the wide receiver spot. And then last but not least is my flex. Now you can go, I'm assuming, running back. Like, how is it just
running back, wide receiver, tight end.
Right. So just kind of a playmaker, a skill position guy. Okay. This one's tough. This one's really tough. I'll tell you some of the guys I've been thinking of. I'll start with a guy who's kind of tipped my tongue, who I like, because I think he could play multiple positions and play them well. And that's Damian Lillard. And it's part of his mentality is why I want him on my team. And that is he's clutch, right? You need a big play. He's a clutch type. He's going to go out and do what he can to win for the team. And we see that in the NBA all the time. So I love the clutch factor. I want a guy like that on my fantasy team. What does that mean? Do I want body wise? He's on the shorter end. He's kind of with my Curry. So again, if we're going football, you want a guy with a little bit stockier, but I think he could play wide receiver. I think he could play running back. If we're translating this over to the NFL, I think he's one of those utility type flex type players that can play multiple positions. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to go Damian Lillard. I'm going to hit it there. I was thinking also Kawhi. I thought he might be a good spot here. I was going to do a little Kemba Walker. I'm a UConn grad, big Kemba Walker fan. So it was roughly in that range. I think Kawhi, I'd probably go in that order. If those two guys were taken, I would have taken Kemba. But I think I'm going to go with Damian Lillard just because I think he's flexible. He could play in the flex. He can play different positions. And, he's got that clutch mentality. I want a guy who's, will get his nose dirty on the field and certainly get me some points for my fantasy team. So, yeah, Dame Lillard, welcome. I like my team. Ooh. It's on you, my man. Last pick of the draft. Who is the last pick? Mr. Irrelevant. Here we go.
Yeah. So despite the outcome of his NBA draft, I am going with a formerly, I guess still technically undrafted player. A player who shattered a franchise record of points in a game, I believe, a week or two ago. I think it was the franchise record. And that is coming from locally up here in Toronto, and that's Fred VanVleet. So
nice.
Fred VanVleet, he's 6 foot. He is probably going to be a running back here, but he is a fast player. He's a strong player also. He has the mentality. He basically bet on himself when he went undrafted, and he put himself in a great position. In Toronto, winning the championship in 2019. And I think he brings positivity to the locker room. Again, even though it's fantasy, but, just...
it's fun to think of it that way. This is such a cool exercise we're doing here. I love this.
Yeah, and I think he just falls into place. And if James Harden, my running back, again... a more inconsistent player, just like the player that you drafted your flex player as a backup to, Kevin Durant. And coincidentally, they're on the same NBA team. And that's the same one that gives up record points. But so Fred VanVleet.
If we were picking defenses, I wouldn't be going with the Nets. I can tell you that. Stay away. Draft or beware.
Yeah, and so we did not pick kickers or defense because that's almost impossible to predict.
You never know. Luka
Doncic coming from a European country, and maybe they play soccer.
Yeah, I do like it. And you know who else? Steph Curry. I picked him as one of my wide receivers here, but he just strikes me. And you see him, he's a golfer and everything. he just strikes me. You give him like a day, he's going to be nasty no matter what athlete. He does. Like he's one of those guys that just, they're just good at everything, pick up everything. But yeah, no, I love the pick here. I love the pick. VanVleet, man. I like what we did here. I like what we did. This is interesting.
And when we look at these two teams, and to any listeners who have completely forgotten our teams by this point in the episode, either just scroll down to the show notes or go on over to our Instagram, Twitter, or Facebooks, and you'll see a nice list there. So when you're looking at these two teams matched up here, what is a matchup or two that stands out the most to you and could be the deciding factor in this matchup?
I mean, honestly, if you just line up the quarterbacks, the wide receivers, tight ends, running back, flex, if you put them side to side, I'd say based on the skill sets and how they translate to football for these players, I think we're pretty evenly matched here. I think maybe I'm being a little selfish here. And liking my team, like this is what we do in fantasy football. We fall in love with our team. We get blind to everything else, right? When after you draft, you forget you have some holes they got to.
Certainly helps if you're a Cowboys fan and have nothing else to root for.
All right. I'll give you that was good. But hey, this is I can't even argue with you. I can't even argue. They've been a disappointment for the better part of 20-something years for me. So listen, I was the last Super Bowl, I was 9 years old and I'm 35 now. So let's do the math there. But it's been a while. But I do think I have the slight edge at quarterback. I think LeBron, I think as an athlete, he's overall a better athlete than basically almost everyone on this list on either of our teams. But I think that a little bit of an edge there at quarterback. But you look at Durant and Giannis, I think you have the edge there just in I think, if we're talking basketball, I think Durant's a bit of a better player. He's got a better well-rounded player. But if we're translating over to football, I think that they're pretty evenly matched. And Giannis is a little younger and less injury prone. So there's that. I think at running back, especially if you use a VanVleet in that regard, and I use Westbrook and Lillard can be used in that. I like you got Harden. I like the matchups here. I think it's pretty close as how their skill sets translate. Draymond Green versus Zion. I think size wise you have it, but speed wise and maybe ball skill wise, I think Draymond Green. Catching the ball, sure, but whereas Zion's he'll body someone who'll run through you once he gets it. Maybe it's a short pass and he's knocking through for a few more yards. But
Draymond Green is also a suspension threat if he decides to to kick someone in the balls. Just saying.
Well, then he's my kicker. There you go. See, now he's my flex for kicker. I need someone to kick. I got Draymond. But I think this is Westbrook. I think my team is more speed. I think my team has a bit more. We're like the old Raiders, right? They always used to draft the speedy wide receivers.
I got size, you got speed.
Yeah, so that's really the matchup. I think it is kind of size versus speed. That's overall, and I think you got some speedy guys. I got some guys with some size, but yeah, I think that's where it falls into place. This is like I said, I keep on saying this is such a cool thing to do and the way to think about athletes in different sports, which is what we do all the time, right? You turn on ESPN, turn on Fox Sports. Who's the GOAT? Who's this? It's but flipping that on its head, I love what you're doing here, Will. I think this is such a cool show you got here, and you got a listener in me for sure.
Thank you.
Awesome stuff.
Yeah, and we'll definitely look to have you back on with the upcoming fantasy football season sometime at the end of summer. And
and I would love to have you, one of these days talk about this sort of stuff, related to fantasy football. Down the road with it. It'd be great to have you in, for sure. Sure. But this has been fun. I'd love to be back for sure.
Yeah. Well, lots of different stuff going on here. And last quick question before we sign off. Just looking at it, who is winning this? Just don't think just
me. Well, I love my baby. This is my baby now. So let's see. Maybe we pan out. Maybe back at the end of the summer, whenever, right before the fantasy season starts, draft season. Maybe we relook and we look at who panned out in the NBA and did they do their stats line up to those skill sets we talked about for the NFL? And I think that's that would be really cool. And I'm excited, to get into, people think, the fantasy football season, so the podcast has to stop for me anyways. But certainly, a lot of off-season stuff going on this year.
This NFL offseason compared to the MLB offseason, absolutely nothing. The NBA offseason, okay, there's some action here and there. The NFL, because the NFL, this just has to hold up until mid or end of April. Then you got the draft. And then at that point, mini camps are already starting, basically. So
and then so much of the fantasy football stuff is leading up to the draft. And people want to know, okay, where am I picking who, and who's a risk, who's not a risk, who's going to be consistent for me? How do I construct my team based on who I went with early? How do I fill in some of the air holes? There's so much to it, and that's what I love to talk about. And again, this is just a fantastic way to kind of get into that mindset already. So again, I thank you for having me on for sure.
Airing it out with Joe Daley. Go check it out. There will be links to all of their social media accounts, and you can listen to the podcast and their website and stuff, all of that. Just scroll down to the show notes and all the links will be there to check it out. And by the time that fantasy football season rolls around, if you start listening now, Joe will keep you up to date.
I'll do my best to get you guys ready. And like you said, airing it out, it's available on all platforms, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify. Thank you for putting that stuff in there. I love that. And come give us a listen, guys. There's no off season. All right. In fantasy, people might tell you there's no off season. We'll be back. We'll be back soon, relaunching the podcast. Will, thanks again, man.
Thanks for coming on. Again, that was Joe Daley from the Airing It Out with Joe Daley Fantasy Football podcast. Go check that out. All of the links, again, in the show notes. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, if you could leave us a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts or Podchaser, that would be awesome. And share it with a friend or share it on your social media. And the best way for us to grow is if you, the listener, share the podcast by word of mouth or by posting it on social media. And that helps us out a ton and encourages us to keep making more amazing episodes just like this one. Next week, we've got another episode all lined up with, again, I hate to spoil the episodes a week before, so I'm not gonna tell you, but again, it's another great episode just like this one, and you're definitely gonna want to stick around and hear it. So next Wednesday, come back, new episode, www.substantiatepod.com, or follow or subscribe depending on which app you use to listen. So go do that. Come back next week. Hope you have a good week, and you'll hear from me next week. Thank you for listening to this episode of Substantiate. The best way to help support the show is to, number one, tell your friends about Substantiate. That is the number one way to support us. The second way is to leave us a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts or Podchaser. Number 3, follow us at substantiatepod on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook.
Hello, I'm Anthony.
And I'm Dr. Issues.
And we're hosts of Capes on the Couch, the podcast where comics get counseling.
Superheroes don't always get to go home happy. That's where we come in.
We offer psychiatric and mental health analysis of comic book characters.
So check us out at capesonthecouch.live and across all social media platforms at Capes on the Couch.